So welcome everyone. We are session 6 of the bootcamp. Thank you so much for joining us. To give a few minutes for all the attendees to join the webinar, I'm going to share my screen very briefly. If you've attended the first week of the webinar session, you'll have seen this, but it's just a little reminder that the bootcamp is part of Buy Social Scotland, a support program to give you, some communications and marketing tips if you're a social enterprise that sells products or services and you're trying to bolster your efforts in time for the festive season or beyond that, really. So we have 8 sessions in total. We did 5 sessions on the first week, and we have 3 more really interesting sessions this week. So we hope that you like the program, and remember, it's free to sign up for a session. So if you want to join us for another one of the sessions this week on Wednesday or Thursday, you're very welcome to, and you can send the links to anyone who might be interested as well. A little note before I introduce our speakers, to say that if you are selling any products or services that fall under ethical gifts, then get in touch with me. A few of you have. Thank you so much, and I will follow up with you. We are really keen to feature and showcase social enterprises in the lead up to Christmas. So we have kind of exciting things happening with an online destination and some social media content. So if that's you, please get in touch, and I would love to hear more about what you do. Today we have a really nice program. We're talking about social media channels, so how to make the most of them, from algorithms to audiences, tone of voice, formats. Let's be honest, social media can be a little bit confusing. It's one of these things where there are so many best practices around and so many things to know that it can look a little bit overwhelming. But we have some great speakers with us today who are gonna, give us some pointers and make it easier for us to navigate that. So first off, we have Katrina and Veronica. They are the digital marketer and the graphic designer at Passion for Social. It's a creative agency and also a social enterprise. They support government, third sector, and corporate clients with digital content and media production. One thing that's interesting about Passion for Social is that creating sustainable employment opportunities for people with disabilities is at the core of their mission. So they are big on employability, and they're also big on trying to teach people about best practices around accessibility. So when they create websites for clients, then that's a big part of what they put in place, which is great. And we also have Lucinda. Really excited to have Lucinda with us today. She's the director at Media Co-op, and she's been with the creative agency for 15 years. So, she's the person to go to if you need any help when it comes to media production. They have a staggering amount of clients and lots of award-winning projects, from animations to video production to documentaries and even campaign assets all across the board. So if you are an organization in the public sector, if you're a charity, you're a social enterprise, or you're a government employee working on an exciting campaign, then you should definitely chat to Media Co-op. Media Co-op also is a social enterprise and a workers' cooperative. So harnessing communications for social good is really at the heart of everything they do. And I think if you look at their projects, then that really shines through. Quick housekeeping note, and most of you will know this already for having joined us on previous sessions, but we are recording the bootcamp sessions, and I will be sharing all of the videos as well as an asset that you can download as a PDF, which will recap the insights shared today, and also links if you want to go further, and the contacts of our speakers. So don't worry, whether you sign up for one session or several, you'll have access to the content from all of the bootcamp goodies. So you can learn a lot and take advantage of all of the practical tips that we're sharing. I will stop sharing my screen and hand over to our speakers. So we'll start with Katrina and Veronica. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just Welcome to Passion for Social's presentation about social media. To start off, I'm going to tell you a bit about Passion for Social, just expanding on what Jessie has already said. Passion for Social's mission is to create sustainable employment opportunities for people with disabilities, which will hopefully contribute to their feelings of inclusion, health, well-being, and improve their quality of life. Our mantra is to enable equal opportunities. The services we offer are brand storytelling, content writing, graphic design, web design, and analytics. But what makes us different from any other creative agency is the quality that we bring to our work. Also, the timing that we complete it in and the support we give our customers along the way. So to start off our social media presentation, I'm going to discuss how to use social media channels effectively. First of all, it's important to create a good story for your brand. That is a good opportunity to engage with your audience. So your brand's story should be a story like any other story with a good middle, beginning, and end. And you can tell the story through the use of narrative and images or video, and in the hopes of provoking an emotional response from your audience, which will increase their loyalty to your brand. The audience should be hooked by your story from the start. They should start to empathize with the characters, and the story should evoke a sense of passion within them. So they should start to realize that these characters could be real people with real stories, and hopefully that sense of passion will motivate them to become active within your cause. The purpose of the purpose of your story is to increase sales, advocacy, and awareness, and also to advertise for recruitments. Your brand story will grow depending on the audience participation that you receive. The audience will engage with the stories that you tell and the testimonials that you share. For example, you might share stories from other team members talking about their experiences. And most importantly, don't forget that your audience is the hero in this story, and they're as important to the story as you are. Next is how to engage with posts. So it's very important to maintain a good social media presence because 58% of customers visit a brand's social media pages before visiting their website. For the customer to engage with your post, firstly, they need to like or follow your social media pages. They'll find out about your social media pages by word of mouth, for example, attending conferences where your company is spoken about, or they can visit our website, which will link them back to our social media pages. People can also comment on, like, and share our posts on Twitter, which increases our engagement. Also, by viewing videos and clicking on images, this will help to increase engagement. Next, I want to talk about features of social media and algorithms. Every social media platform is a bit different. For example, many people are familiar with Twitter, which only lets you post 280 characters at a time. So this platform is reserved for tweets that are very short and snappy. Also, Facebook and LinkedIn are popular with businesses. LinkedIn more so than Facebook. On Facebook, you can post a lot more characters than on LinkedIn. Your social media algorithm will sort posts in a user's feed based on what interests them rather than when something has been published. The algorithm works depending on your behavior. So, for example, if you were interacting a lot with a certain account, your news feed would show you lots of posts from that account. It's important to get fast engagements to help your posts be seen by more people. So if you post something on Facebook, let your friends know about it, let other people in the company know about it so that they can like it and share it. So you'll get faster engagements. Algorithms also work with hashtags and keywords. So depending on what hashtags and keywords you've been searching for, your post should relate to those hashtags and keywords. These are just some statistics for different social media platforms. They're just describing what demographics would look at a certain social media platform. You don't have to worry too much about reading these just now, because we'll share this presentation at the end of the bootcamp today. And there's some statistics on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, which are probably the 4 main social media platforms any business would use. Next is the difference between organic and paid posts. Organic posts, as the name suggests, are natural posts. There are posts that people would see in their news feed if they follow you. And engagement grows from these posts only by people interacting with them or sharing the posts with their connections or friends. These posts are posted for free and are best used to target existing customers. Alternatively, you have paid posts. So if you want your post to be shown to more people, you can boost it, which means that the publisher will pay the social media platform to get your post seen by more people. You should use these posts if you want to target new customers. You can decide which what audience you want to target based on a certain demographic. So, for example, age group 18 to 24, or people who live in Scotland. These posts, as I've already mentioned, can target new customers and increase brand awareness. A paid post will only show results over time, so it's important that you closely analyze the results of these posts. You can use an A/B test to do this, for example. And when you're posting a paid post, it's a good idea to offer something with the post. For example, you could say, like this post to win a discount or an ebook, for example. Next is all about hashtags. So I've mentioned hashtags earlier, but now I'll tell you what they are. Hashtags are keywords or short phrases which just let a social media user know what your content is about instantly. So you can add these hashtags into your content or at the end. If you use specific terms, then you'll hopefully get more engagement. For example, if you use a term such as workplace diversity, you should get more engagement than if you just use diversity. It's important to keep hashtags simple So don't use too many words or short sentence or full sentences because you don't want them to become confusing. You can't use punctuation or spaces with a hashtag. You can create a branded hashtag. So our hashtag is proud to be different, and we use this hashtag on every social media post, and this helps to increase brand awareness. As your followers will start to associate this hashtag with your brand. You can also encourage your followers to use the hashtag if they're talking about you in a post. So for example, this bootcamp has been advertised today using our hashtag passion for social, so that just increases brand awareness for us. Hashtags can also show that you support social issues or awareness days like IWD for International Women's Day. Your target audience can follow your hashtag so that every time you tweet with that hashtag, it will show up in their feed. How to manage a page. It's important that you maintain your social media pages. So I manage 2 of the social media pages for Passion for Social, and that involves me regularly checking to see who has shared, commented on, or liked our posts. And then I would thank the person and ask them why they have liked the post or why they haven't liked it. It's a good idea to follow or like other pages that have similar values to you. This just shows that you're interested in what other companies are doing, and that you're friendly to other companies. You should regularly check what your followers and competitors have posted and engage with what they have said. You should be selective about this and not comment on everything, but maybe just whatever you find the most interesting. You should also try to promote discussion by asking questions about what people have liked, what they haven't liked, why they're posting something, and say why you find it interesting. Next is understanding analytics. So this is all your analytical data that I mentioned earlier. So first of all, your impressions refer to the number of times your content is displayed. And reach refers to the number of people who see a post. So the difference between impressions and reach is impressions are just how many times your post has been shown, but reach is how many times people actually stop to look at it and read it. And then you have your engagements. Engagements may differ depending on your social media platform. So for example, Twitter shares information about hashtag clicks. LinkedIn shares information about click-through rates, but typically your engagements mean likes, comments, and shares. And when you've got all your engagements, you can calculate an engagement rate. This will again differ depending on which social media platform you're using. But this will be shown as a percentage. You can calculate an engagement rate for an individual post, a number of posts, or the whole page. So you should regularly collect analytical data to help the company understand what followers are liking, what they don't like, what times are best to post, what days of the week. And finally, just to wrap up, your brand should tell a story. You should post on social media regularly to increase brand awareness, advocacy, and to advertise for recruitments. You should regularly check on the progress of your social media site to see what strategies are working or aren't working. It's important to keep things fresh and interesting, so you should regularly post about your brand story, but always try to make it different and use emotive language to draw your audience into your story. Finally, you should use hashtags to help draw other audiences into your brand and to alert your existing audience to your posts. So that's the end of the presentation for today. Thank you for listening, and if you would like to follow us on social media, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and we've got a website in there, so the information on the slide.
Thank you, Katrina. That was really great. And the slides with all the recaps of each channel is like gold, because it's actually easy to compile all this information. So thank you so much for that. I think it's really good that we can refer to that afterwards. I just asked in the chat if anybody has a few quick questions, but already I have two small ones that I have in mind. And that I'd love to ask you and Veronica. So the first one is if you have a recommendation, because this came up in the conversation, if people can only focus on one or two channels because of the time that they have, do you have a recommendation of which channel is going to give you the best return on investment, kind of?
Well, in my experience, LinkedIn is the most used for businesses, so I would focus on LinkedIn.
Okay, that's a good tip. And in terms of LinkedIn, then I'm shamelessly asking for us as well at Social Enterprise Scotland. But do you recommend using hashtags on LinkedIn? Because I can see that some people do and some people don't. Some put a lot, some put just two or three. So what's your recommendation?
Well, we always use hashtags on our posts, and I think it is easier for people to find our posts, especially if they're following a hashtag. But I know a lot of companies don't use hashtags, but I think it works both ways, with and without.
Yeah, it's probably always good with social to test things a little bit and look at the analytics and then see how the posts have performed, if you used hashtags or not, or if you used one specific hashtag compared to another. I loved your tip as well about using a brand hashtag, because I've definitely noticed that it's something that I do more and more when I am following a brand or an organization that I like and they have a brand hashtag. I'll often click on it and just see all of the content that they have shared. It's such an easy way to have
Yeah.
a feed that's like already kind of curated about a specific topic. So I think that's a really good tip that everyone can keep in mind. Um, I'm just looking at the chat. Everyone is saying it was great and a good explanation of the basics and very helpful. Um, Kate is asking, in terms of an organization's story, you were talking about storytelling and character and kind of like creating a
Yeah.
sense of story. Can you explain how maybe an organization that sells a service can do that?
Well, you just want to talk about how your service can benefit other people. So, for example, it's good um to work that into a story, like the main character used whatever the product was and it benefited them in some way.
That makes sense. So trying to frame the content that you share with to provoke a bit of an emotional response or tell it in a way that it illustrates a human or like the impact of what you did or that sort of thing is better than just sharing facts, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we're going to jump to Lucinda, but I'm going to tell you in advance a question that I have for the end. Sorry, I can see that actually there's a question from Marta as well. What if a service organization has different services? Okay, so when you build your brand storytelling for social media, would you have different approaches depending on your products and services, or would you be trying to always kind of building things around the same narrative? Sorry, that's a complicated question.
Well, it depends on what product or service you're wanting to promote. I'd just say that you, you always want to hook your audience in to uh, to the product or service you're offering. So you've got to first of all make them see how this product is good and how it will benefit their lives.
That makes sense. And Marta actually added that some of the services they would be looking at promoting on social media would be things like counseling or mediation. I think that's exactly what you said. Like that's a good example of where you can talk about what the service is in each specific service, but you can also maybe give a testimonial, like anonymous testimonial from a beneficiary, or you could, you know, highlight what is the process in mediation, what does that involve. It could be like a did you know, that kind of type of post.
Yeah.
And you can start to kind of weave a story around something that could be dry if you were just sharing it as is with like an online page.
I think it helps if you think about your brand as a whole, and all of those services that you offer are kind of like little packages that you offer. You just have to make sure that they're all in the same like sphere. You can offer them like, you can maybe do like simple different branding for each one of them, but they all need to be part of this whole sphere, which is your brand.
That makes sense. That's a good tip. And Sarah is asking, what do you think of the idea of featuring yourself? So maybe as a founder or as like the key team members of organization in your content while you're talking about products and services and trying to sell them. Is that icky, or is it a good thing to show the human behind the scene? What do you think?
Well, it depends on what, again, what product you're offering. I know some people find it uncomfortable to maybe talk about products, but it's good to see the human side of products, because in the end you want people to buy these, so you've got to make them see how they'll benefit.
I agree. And I think that often it turns out, even for big corporate brands, people buy more into a person than they buy into a thing at the end of the day. So, you know, beyond whatever product or service you're offering, if you are comfortable to share a bit of who you are, why you created this in the first place, how you're delivering it, the difference that it makes, then it's a nice story to tell. And it's even potentially easier than to have an approach where you're always trying to sell. I think I have a friend who told me once that it's good to balance and have maybe, you know, 2 or 3 shares that are about your community or topics that are related to what you're doing, and then 1 share which is specifically about selling something. So it's good to not always be in a selling mode, I guess, on social media. I'm gonna jump and give the mic to Lucinda so she has time to go through all of her content. But thank you so much for all of your questions already, and really excited to hear more about video.
Thanks, Katrina, and hello, everybody. I'm going to start sharing my screen, if that's all right. My name's Lucinda, and I'm from Media Co-op. So just a very quick introduction to Media Co-op. Let's see if this works. Could somebody shout if you can't see what you're expecting? Jess knows what to expect.
We can see. Yeah, that's great.
Lovely. Okay, thank you. So we are a social enterprise. Obviously, we wouldn't be here, and we've been at this for quite a while, since 2004. We're called Media Co-op, which obviously was a really tricky name to come up with because we are a workers' cooperative and we make media. Our business is making media for the social enterprises, for the third sector and for public sector. And what I'm going to talk about now is the power of video on social. So of all the different kinds of content that you can post, far and away the most popular and the most shared content on social is video. So if we compare, for example, video versus text, what the research says is that people retain 95% of a message when they watch it, compared to 10% when they read it. And according to research in Psychology Today, our brains are hardwired to process visual information, video, 60,000 times faster than text. So that's why we're spending the next 20 minutes on video. I'm going to screen a few videos during this talk. I promise that none of them are longer than 60 seconds. And this is my first tip for everybody, okay? Tip number one, when you're making video for social, it's much better to think in seconds and not minutes. Some of the things I'm going to show are made by us at Media Co-op, and some of them are made by other social enterprises on their own mobile phones. The point, which is tip number two, which is the slide you can see now, is that there's a really big range of what you can do, from professional video, which is relatively inexpensive enterprise, to homemade, which is virtually free, depending on how you cost your own time or the time of your clients or your customers. We're going to start, so we're going to explore a bit this range, and we're going to begin with the professional end. I'm going to show you a 60-second animation that Media Co-op made for the charity Rape Crisis Scotland. So somebody shout or wave if this is not playing and you can't hear it.
I always thought if it happened to me, I'd fight back. But actually, I just froze. I thought I'd scream and shout, but I literally couldn't move. I hoped people would understand. They didn't. In reality, none of us knows how we'd react to being raped. Our brain goes into survival mode, and our instincts automatically take over. Freezing is a perfectly natural response to trauma. And you need to understand this, because one day someone might tell you they've been raped. Your friend, your neighbour, your daughter, your son, or a stranger. You could be on a jury in a rape trial, hearing someone say, I thought I'd fight back. I just froze.
So there's lots of different things we could say about that video. But what I want to say now for our purposes of sharing video on social is my third tip for everybody. You can get a lot into a very short amount of screen time. If you really spend time at the beginning of planning your video, thinking out what you want to say. Video and animation are fantastic at compressing complex messages, particularly compared to text. So in terms of reach, as Katrina was talking to us about earlier, of the video you just saw, we had a kind of double whammy with this one. So we got over 359,000 organic views through different channels online, and a lot of shares and so on. So in relation to what Katrina was saying about organic versus paid, these were all organic. And something you'll be told by everybody who talks to you about social is that you want to be getting retweeted by people with a lot of followers. So one way to do that is to pay an influencer. People do that. We were lucky in this case in that we were retweeted by the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon. That helped a lot to get that amount of organic exposure. When I said double whammy, the other thing, that way that we got this piece of work shown a lot was it was made quite a big splash on mainstream news media. And the reason I'm saying this is important to realize that social media and mainstream media, they both live in the same world. It's not one or the other. So this is tip number 4, actually. If you've got good video content, it can function for you on social, but it also makes it easier for you to get into the mainstream news. So that video you've just seen, it was broadcast on BBC News and STV News, but equally that was, and the kind of things you make in the future, everyone listening, smaller local news websites, they're always hungry for video content because they've got the same issue as you. They want people to engage in their social, and if there's video on it, it's more attractive. So the point here is that buying advertising is expensive, but getting on the news is free, and it's a good way to be reaching more people. Okay, the next video we're going to watch This is another professionally made rather than homemade one, but a lot cheaper because the animation is more basic. And you will judge whether it gets its message across despite being a bit simpler in terms of the style.
We all believe in justice and compassion, yet too many people are swept up in a rising tide of poverty, struggling to pay bills, put food on the table, and take part in society. By boosting incomes and bringing down the cost of living, we can loosen the grip of poverty. Employers can provide secure jobs and pay the real living wage. Businesses can make sure essentials like food, energy, and credit don't cost extra for people on low incomes. Governments can invest in transport, housing, and childcare so they're affordable and accessible, and make sure social security is enough to cover our needs. Together, we can redesign our economy to fit our values of compassion and justice so we all have enough. Take action today.
I've got one more animation to show you. The final one is an example of a different approach. This wasn't made just by the Media Corp professionals alone in our studio. This was made in a kind of co-production approach with the participation of service users, in this case, school children.
Hey you, slogging,
Eating,
smiling,
whistling,
singing,
licking,
talking.
laughing.
Wouldn't be the same if you had mouth cancer. So, cut down the risk. Here's how.
Don't smoke. Don't drink too much booze. Get the HPV jab. And stick to safer sex.
And my big tip, get to know your mouth. Use a mirror. If you spot the signs, red or white patches.
Lumps or bumps, or an ulcer that won't heal. Go to the dentist. Get it checked.
Hey you, love your mouth.
So that one, again, relating back to what I was saying before about how to get onto the mainstream media, having public participation in the media that you create, in the videos that you create, is in itself a story. So it made easier to get that one on the mainstream news as well. Okay, we're now moving on from animation to show you a few videos, like video, filmed on cameras. All of them are related to social enterprises. So remember what I said earlier, and I'm repeating this now with the label tip number 5, okay? You only need your mobile phone, as long as it's got a camera on it, all right? So this next clip I'm going to show you was shot by a colleague of mine, but not with professional camera, just on her phone at an event by the wonderful Scottish Social Enterprise Scotland at the Scottish Parliament. And this was posted within a very short time of the event happening. So this takes us way back into history, in the days when we used to actually be in rooms with each other. And let's just have faith those days are going to come again.
Social enterprise is just, to me, the most obvious way of doing business. Like, it doesn't make sense that you have some sort of shareholder or fat cat, whoever it is, taking loads of money out. It's all about reinvesting in communities. It's all about making sure that we have a fair price and that we can generate good by doing what we do.
So my tip in relation to that one is that if you run an event in the days when we're allowed to run events again, if you run an event, you reach to and you speak to the people at the event, which is great. And, you know, if you tweet about it or write about it on your social media, you might reach more people. But if you can make a short video which sums up the essence of your event, you can reach a lot more people. The next 2 videos I'm going to show you, remember working our way through the range of different ways to create moving image content. The next 2 ways were shot by volunteers at 2 different social enterprises. The first one is from Stepwell, the cook school in Inverclyde.
In the kitchen, we feel that working with food, cooking together helps them to connect.
helps them to engage and really actually have fun.
I couldn't do it in a house, so it gets them out and I hope me have fun. It's brilliant, man, because no many places to do it like that.
I think it's great to connect with other families similar, so that they don't actually feel that they're on their own. They can see that there's other families in similar circumstances and also similar ages, so they're kind of going through the same thing. Because I do think when you are a mum or a dad or have a family responsibility, sometimes it can be a bit on your own. Sometimes you can feel that. So when you're coming into the cook school and engaging with other families, you actually feel part of something, part of that bigger family and part of the bigger Stepwell family. I was isolated, very isolated. Just me and my daughter, and I was more for her than for me myself, but not more for my daughter because she was isolated with me, and I've become a lot more open about stuff now, and as you can see, my daughter's a lot more lively than what she was.
Oh, fine, doing well.
So somebody was asking earlier in the chat about whether the social entrepreneur herself is a good person to put on screen. So you'll see in that clip, we had both the social entrepreneur speaking and some of the service users that she works with. The next clip is a different approach. You don't see any, it's from the Hidden Gardens in Glasgow. You don't see any Hidden Garden staff at all. It was Hidden Garden staff and volunteers who filmed participants at one of the events at the Hidden Garden.
It's a series of knots that creates a plant hanger. So you've got to go over and under and then through and keep the tension so that it can hold a plant safely. Well, this is my first go at it, but I've actually found it quite therapeutic. It's quite repetitive, so you're going through the motions, which is quite nice. You can kind of switch off and think about it a bit.
I think it's a very interesting thing for our mind, help our mind to concentrate something and something brand new. I like it very much.
I'm getting towards the end of what I've got to say, but in relation to those two videos you just saw from Stepwell and Hidden Gardens, I'm going to say my 7th tip, and I think this is the most important thing I've got to say today. So listen up. Tip number 7 coming up. People are your biggest asset. This really fits with what Katrina was saying about storytelling and what Jessie was saying about the human face on the business. People, the users of social media, the people you're trying to reach through your media, are interested in people. They want to see people's faces and hear people's personal stories. So you, everybody listening, everybody participating here, because you are social entrepreneurs, you are in a really good position compared to a lot of enterprises, because all social enterprises, we all involve people and we all benefit people. So you're in a great place to do the stuff that works best on social media. Okay, that was it. That was my most important thing I had to say. I'm now going to say one more thing, tip number 8. If you have decided you want to use video and you've got a limited amount of money to invest, we've all got limited money, okay? So that's everybody. The best investment that I would recommend is not to commission someone like Media Co-op to make you some fancy stuff, although please do, we'd love that. And it's not going out and buying a fancy new camera. The single thing that for most people, most social enterprises that you can do to make your video better is to invest in some training, to learn how to shoot better and how to edit in-house. So tip number 8.5 related to that is, I'd like you to consider that the right people for you to train might not only be your staff, it might well be your service users or your customers, because they might well have the stories or be closest to the stories that your audiences are most interested in. If I'm allowed to do a little plug here, that is one of the things we do at Media Co-op. We do offer training in how to make your social videos on your phone, and we can currently do the training remotely, but obviously there are other providers who can also do that training, so shop around. Okay, we're nearly at the end of my contribution. I've got one last video clip and one last tip. So I'm going to show you one more video, which uses up, I think, the whole 60 seconds, and it was shot during lockdown. It was shot by 6 different cooperatives, 6 different social enterprises, which are cooperatives, and all shot on their phones. And this video says something about what it means to be a cooperative, but you can imagine as you watch it that you could do something like this that showcases something which is the core story of your own social enterprise.
When the world ground to a halt, we kept key workers moving.
We've kept our stores open and our shelves well stocked.
Hi guys, hope you're all keeping safe.
Today we're going to be making
Frittata,
truck scones, chickpea and pineapple curry. We've been looking after our family and yours.
Because even when we're apart,
we're helping to build a better future from the rubble of this crisis.
And showing the world what working together can do.
as cooperatives, we know what it means to work together to build a better society.
It's in our DNA, every day.
And it's in yours too. We've all seen what happens when we cooperate. So let's keep cooperating.
So my final tip in relation to that campaign video you've just seen, if you're wanting to make a campaign video, what you need to do is to keep it simple and to be really clear what your message is. Okay, that's me. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed watching and hope these tips have been useful, and look forward to hearing your questions. Can you stop the share for me? I can't quite see it. I can't reach it. Hang on a minute. I can reach it now. Okay.
In full screen, sometimes it's tricky.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lucinda. That was so interesting in terms of the tips that you shared, so practical. But I think it's also really helpful to actually see examples, because in the day-to-day, we're always kind of busy and have a vague idea of what other people are doing, and also always think like people have invested a lot of money to do things. But actually, I think it was really good that you shared different types of content that people can do with videos, and also that you can do things on the DIY as well. It's possible. So I love that. That was really good. I have noted a few questions as we went along, so let's jump straight in. One of the early questions was about, you said, when you look at video, think about seconds over minutes. Keep things simple, don't necessarily make super long content. When it comes to social media channels, people can share short content on Instagram stories, on Instagram Reels, on TikTok. Do you think that it would be better to focus on this type of small content rather than maybe like longer videos for YouTube or for Vimeo? Or do you think both have a place for different types of objectives?
It obviously depends on what you're trying to do. If you want a lot of people to see something, it has to be short.
Yeah.
Because more people have got 15 seconds to watch your stuff than people who've got 10 minutes. If you know exactly who the people are who've got 10 minutes and can watch, all the way through something on YouTube or Vimeo for 10 minutes, then great. But that's going to be a more limited audience. Yeah, that's true. And something that I wrote in the chat and I really believe in as well is, if you are making content for YouTube, it's a channel where people search. So if it's the same as Google, if you have content that you can make which is genuinely valuable, it's a recipe, it's a tutorial, it explains a definition that's complicated to understand and has its place on YouTube. But then if you're making a 4-minute video on Twitter on the same topic, it's not necessarily going to land. So yes, short is best. You can't put 4 minutes on Twitter, obviously, anyway.
Oh yeah, that's true. It's like 1 minute 10 or 1 minute 20, something like that.
It's 2 minutes and 40 seconds, I think.
Okay.
It's the amount of seconds is the same as the amount of characters.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, and okay, this one is a bit more practical, but it's what are some of the best free or affordable editing apps that you recommend? Obviously, at Media Co-op, you'll have like really nice professional software, but do you know about any which are?
It depends. I have to say, I'm not an editor, and I'm also not the person that does social media in the company either. Actually, it really depends what hardware you're using. A lot of phones have got like editing software kind of like on already. Depends. When I've got an Android, it's not as good, but and there are a lot of different free downloadable ones, and most of them, if you pay a bit more, then you get a few more features. I'm not an editor, so I can't give you a,
yeah, don't worry. I'll
a
look it
proper
up and
thing,
I'll
but there's nothing wrong with most of the free ones.
Yeah.
The one that you find easy to use is the best one. But to be honest, doing editing isn't about what software you're using. It's about having clarity of decisions about when to cut and what picture to put beside what picture.
Yeah, and as you said, what is the key message? What are you trying to get across? The more focus you have on that, the clearer it is to know what you're including. And yeah. If you develop kind of like an animation, what is if that's not too cheeky to ask, but how much does it cost? Because obviously they were great, this animation, and I'm sure
no, that's not cheeky. I mean, I think it's part of being an ethical company to be transparent about cost. So not cheeky at all. I'm afraid, though, the answer is a bit annoying. It's a bit of a piece of string answer. It depends what you want as to how much it's going to cost, and that's another thing about being an ethical company is to, I think, is to be transparent about what it is that you're paying for. So I obviously can't quote exactly what other companies have paid because of business confidentiality, but the first one you saw, it was tens of thousands to make 2 60-minute 60 seconds, sorry, to make 2 60-second pieces with all the associated development and original music and da-da-da-da-da. The second one you saw was below 5,000.
Okay.
And we have been able to go below that occasionally. The kind of guideline price is usually, if you're looking at 2 minutes, it'll be in the territory of 10,000 if you're working with Media Co-op, but it really depends on what you want. And you can certainly come to us, and I'm sure this is equally true for other agencies. You can come to us and you can say, this is what I want to achieve, and this is the budget I've got. And then we can answer the missing gap, which is what can you get for that budget? Because obviously you might well not know how much any style or sort of stuff that you end up with on screen is likely to cost. Why would you know that?
Yeah, of
it's
course.
completely legitimate to come and say, I've got this, what can you do?
Yeah, and obviously I'll throw in there as well that as someone who has worked a few times on video projects, purely as the person who was commissioning them, when you are working on them, you realize how much work is involved, like from taking a brief and developing that into like a strategy, and then a script, and then trying different things, and then the illustration style, and then all the illustrations, and then bringing the frames to life. I mean, it's so much work, so I'm not surprised.
It is kind of ironic that a short thing is so expensive, but that is true. The process of getting something that's really short and really works is a long process. And that's true when you commission an animation, but it's equally true if you're doing homemade stuff yourselves. You're shooting your own stuff on your phone. I so would recommend that it's worth taking the time at the beginning to ask yourselves, what exactly am I trying to get across? Who am I trying to speak to? What would be the thing that would make that audience click and engage? The time you spend in that, doing that, will make worthwhile the time you spend in actually producing your stuff.
Yeah.
And the time it takes to cut it down to be shorter is really time well spent.
And of course, I think that whether it's an animation or an interview or any of the different types of content you've shown, it's content that you will be using for a while. Like, it's a good investment. So that's something to think about as well. It might not be a thing that you do for every campaign or that you can afford to do several a year, but when you have a bigger project and you really want it to land and you want to get coverage and all those sorts of things, then that's an interesting thing to at least have a conversation about. Lucinda, in terms of if people film DIY content by themselves and they start editing it and they're struggling a little bit, that's also something that they can approach you or videographers for some help with, like the montage aspect of things, right?
It's the thing we do least of, edit anybody else's stuff. I think to repeat the thing I was saying earlier, the thing you can most fruitfully invest in, I think, is not to buy stuff, but to buy training and increase your own skills. So what we'd find most rewarding if you're struggling with your stuff would be to teach you how to do it yourself. But obviously the door's open,
And we had a question about that actually, Lucinda. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about the service that you offer, which is training?
Yeah. So again, it would be tailored around any individual social enterprise. Normally, we would expect to train a small group of people, and in ye olden days when people used to actually physically come into our office and we would sit with them and breathe the same air as them, there was a 1-day course and a 2-day course that we offered. But now that things are done online, it depends kind of when you're available, but we would break it down into smaller events of a few hours at a time. But we would normally, if we were working with one individual social enterprise, we would sit down with you first, work out who've you got, what do they already know, what do you need to achieve, and then build something around you. And normally the fee for that would be kind of between $4,500 roughly.
Yeah.
However, something we did with, I think before you arrived, Jess, but something we've done with Social Enterprise Scotland is we've also organised courses which Social Enterprise Scotland advertised, and then any individual social enterprise could apply for one place. So so each individual social enterprise only paid a few £100. I can't remember exactly what. I'm not being.
That's nice.
You can't remember.
Like a kind of subsidized program of training or something.
I don't believe it was subsidized. I think it was just rather than one social enterprise getting together a group and then being able to split the costs across the individuals who participated, it was several social enterprises coming together and being trained as a group, and the broker for it was Social Enterprise Scotland.
Well, I would love to do that. Let's do it again.
We could definitely offer again, and it did seem to be very fruitful. Obviously, it was slightly less individually, well, it was less, obviously, individually tailored to the needs of that social enterprise.
Yeah.
But in terms of skills that were needed, that's another approach. We can do one-to-one training as well, if that's, you know, if there's one person in your organization that you know for a fact is the only one who's ever going to do it, then we can do that as well. It's pretty flexible. I mean, what we're interested in, because we are part of the movement of social entrepreneurs, is for everybody out there listening to be able to communicate your stuff better. So
that's great.
Super. I don't know what helps them. We can talk.
I think that was pretty much it for all of the questions in the chat. Veronica, Katrina, did you have any questions for Lucinda?
No, that was all very good, very well explained.
It was very nice, Lucinda. Well done.
Thank you. And thanks for your talk earlier, Katrina.
Okay, great. Well, it's that bittersweet time to say goodbye. But thank you so much to the three of you. Honestly, super interesting presentations and really, really valuable tips. So really appreciate that, and that you took the time. And thank you for everyone who joined us today. It's not too late to sign up on Wednesday, where we'll be talking about leveraging audio, video, and photographies to tell your story. So join us for that. And then on Thursday, it's a really kind of meaty session where we'll be talking about launching a campaign online, doing ads for beginners, that sort of thing, crowdfunding as well. So if you're interested, then free tickets on our website. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a good evening, everyone.